this is Gillian Kirkland with Apesh Media. In a recent report, we covered a webinar hosted by the Apesh Coalition for a Green New Deal and special guest Dr. William Muma, who talked about pro-forestation as a way to combat climate change and the benefits of land trusts as a vehicle to foster it. Today, we meet with Olaf Jensen of Acre and Britta Nielsen, resident of Wakefield, to discuss a land trust project right here in our own backyard. The Hundred Acre Wood is a natural forested area situated directly adjacent to Eco-Echo of the Outaouais Environmental Campus. It has been identified by the National Capital Commission as an important ecological corridor to Gatineau Park and is home to several at-risk species, as well as old growth that includes eastern white cedars. The property is currently up for sale, and there's an ongoing effort to amass necessary funds before the impending deadline. We are here today with Olaf Jensen and Britta Nielsen. Olaf is with Acre and Britta is a Wakefield resident who is part of the team organizing to protect the 100 Acre Wood, right? Yeah, is that a good description? Okay, so Olaf, could you talk to us a little bit about the history of Acre, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. So ACRE stands for Action Chelsea for the Respect for the Environment. It's been around for about 25 years, and the name reflects our origins in the municipality of Chelsea. About 10 years ago, our environmental organization transformed into a land trust, which means we took on the responsibility of acquiring lands for conservation purposes. We work in the municipalities around Gatineau Park to acquire lands, and the 100 Acre Wood project, which we're really excited about, is our 7th conservation acquisition.
And so how did this project come about? Did you approach people living near the 100 Acre Wood, or did they approach you?
Well, it's really a community effort. So we've been working with the landowner, Christopher Minnis, for probably about a decade, talking about conservation opportunities on this land. The lands are part of an ecological corridor identified by Gatineau Park and the National Capital Commission. So we have an interest in them from a conservation point of view. And we have quite a few friends and colleagues that live in the Wakefield area that have also expressed an interest in maintaining the forest the way it is. So it's a bit of everything. We've got interest from all sides.
And Britta, can you tell me, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, I live quite close to the 100 Acre Wood, so I walk there regularly. And I heard about the project just through neighbors and decided it was something that was important to me. So I reached out to Olaf just to see what I could do and became a member of the communications team.
So Olaf, can you explain a little bit more about a land trust and how that operates? Is that forever and ever and ever that people can expect this land to be protected? And if so, who's going to enforce that?
Yeah, great question. So yes, land trust lands are acquired in perpetuity. So they're meant to be permanently protected areas. There's many land trusts all across Canada, some large, some small. And our intention is, yes, to acquire the land for conservation purposes and ensure it stays basically the way it is forever. Acre will be the landowner and will be responsible for ensuring that it is not threatened by development or anything else. And we'll be working closely with the community. Our plan is to establish a local community stewardship committee and have that committee look after the land and report to Acre and collaborate with Acre for the management of the property.
And so what kind of input do you need from the community at this point? You're asking for donations. Is there any kind of other input that's needed, or at this point it's really financial commitment from people to make sure that this can be a go?
Yeah, thanks for the great question. So Acre is supporting essentially a community conservation initiative, and Britta is part of a communications team within the community that is supporting this. We've also have people in the community that are helping with grant writing, helping with talking about what long-term management might look like. Eventually, we'll need support from the community to create this stewardship committee that will help guide the management of the land in the long term.
Okay, so Britta, maybe you could tell us about some of the efforts that you have been organizing around fundraising, and I know you're doing, is it an auction or something like that?
Well, we got together probably about a month ago, I think, just to start the communications efforts, and we've reached out to residents of the local area in a couple of different ways. We have sent out some email information. All of us held a number of Zoom calls sort of about, I think it was in March, really, to reach out to the residents and tell them about the projects. And one of our communications team members, Lori Gao, who is also a local resident and lives close by, is leading the fundraising initiative. She's starting to work on putting together an auction, and I think that you can see a lot of information about the auction by following our Facebook page to get the latest news.
So one question that people may have if they want to contribute to this project is, what will be the land usage in the long term? Because I know that lately there have been some challenges, in particular for neighbors living around the 100 Acre Wood with increased traffic due to increased visibility, because naturally, as you're raising awareness about this, more and more people are coming to check it out. And there's no particular place to park, and there's no particular place to enter. So if people don't know what they're doing, they can easily end up in someone's backyard. And this has been happening more and more, right? So what is the plan in terms of giving access to the 100 Acre Wood, in terms of trails and things like that? Is there a project to have this become an accessible space, or is the idea that this would be a place where humans do not go and it's essentially for wildlife? Could either of you talk about that?
So another great question. So in the short term, our goal is to secure the land so that we can then start making decisions about what access looks like. It's an interesting property in that the 100 Acre Wood is right next door to Eco, the Outaouais Environmental Campus. We don't have any vision for creating parking lots or for allowing access like remote for people from outside the region. Gatineau Park is, of course, right next door, and that has all kinds of facilities for access and visitation. This is still something that we're working on with the community to figure out, and this will be the job of the community stewardship committee to ultimately decide what access looks like. But as you know, right now there is a network of trails through the property, and we see that access by the community continuing. How or if those trails connect to the broader community trails is something that needs to be determined. But we certainly have no vision for parking lots or access for people to drive to the property to visit it. If there is any access from elsewhere, it would likely be foot access only as part of a broader network of trails within the community or within the region.
Another thing is to think about the reason why we're doing this. And it's certainly about the space, but it's really for environmental reasons as well, and saving the forest. So we haven't got a vision to change the way the forest is being used right now. At the moment, it's used lightly, and so I think that's something that the Stewardship Council will need to talk about once they're in place, and think about the community and what the community is interested in.
So if people are interested in contributing to this project and they want to come and check out the 100 Acre Wood, can they legitimately do so, or is there a preference that people not set foot there?
We're working on this right now to try and maybe set up a way that people can come have a look at it. At the same time, people can benefit from this property without ever visiting it, and through the environmental benefits, ecosystem services that this property provides. And there is a lot of interest in this property already. We already have 77 donors and pledgers for the project. We've received $345,000 in pledges and donations already, which is really great. And quite a few of those pledgers and donors don't live anywhere close to the property, but like the concept.
Great. And so if people want to make donations, the donations are tax deductible, right?
At this point in time, we're collecting pledges. So we're looking to get an email from people to say, I'm interested in pledging this amount. And in June, we'll add up all of our pledges and our grants and see if we have sufficient support to acquire the land. And if we do, then we'll call in our pledges and turn the pledges into donations and ask people to donate. All those donations will be to Acre, which is a charitable organization. So they'll get a tax receipt for their donation and can claim it against their taxes.
How close are you to reaching the goal right now?
Well, we assuming that we're successful in our grant applications, and we feel pretty positive about it. We've had support letters from our local MP and from the mayor and from others. And in consideration of the $345,000 we've raised already, and looking at the fact that the landowner has donated $300,000 of the property value through the Ecological Gifts Program, the current gap is about $315,000. We think we can be successful in raising the funds.
Are either of you aware of the proposed development project at the quarry, which directly neighbors the 100 Acre Wood?
Yeah, we're aware of it.
And how do you think that might affect this project?
Well, I'd like to remain positive about it. I mean, the fact is we live in a region that is beautiful and a lot of people want to live here, especially with COVID. People more and more seem to want to get out of the city and live close to the river and the park and the great town of Wakefield. Putting a positive spin on this, hopefully this means we'll have more community-focused and environmentally focused neighbors who would want to contribute to perhaps securing both the 100 Acre Wood and some of the adjacent properties that are also forested.
Is there a project to acquire more properties in the area for Acre? And if so, which ones are those?
Yeah, like any land trust, Acre is constantly looking at and evaluating various properties for acquisition. And that's a discussion at our board in terms of which properties are priorities. We can only acquire properties on a willing seller, willing buyer basis. So not all the properties we're interested in are on the market, nor are the landowners interested. But we have been in contact with the landowners adjacent to 100 Acre Wood to find out if there is an interest in pursuing a similar project.
One thing that comes to mind for me is what this will look like in the long term and sort of like the global vision for land conservation and why that's important over time, where there's a push for development constantly. And what will be the long-standing benefit of land conservation projects such as this?
Well, that's a pretty intense question, but a really good one. But of course, any of us in the environmental movement have seen the news over the last year and decade and beyond about the biodiversity crisis that we're currently facing, the population growth crisis. All of us that live in this beautiful region can see all the development that's happening rather rapidly. We know from a scientific ecological perspective that one of the best ways to respond to the biodiversity crisis is to protect habitat and protect land. And that's where land trusts like Acre can play a real role in setting aside land for conservation. We're lucky that a lot of the conservation work we do can include recreation. So the community trails are compatible with conservation. So there's benefits for biodiversity short term. And of course, we think there's huge benefits long-term, both for biodiversity and for communities. What makes this place such a wonderful place to live is access to outdoor spaces and forests and rivers and all the creatures that live in them. And we're hoping to create a permanently protected space where those creatures can live forever and people can enjoy them forever.
Britta, is there anything else that you wanted to add before we go?
What I'm talking to my neighbors about when I'm talking about the 100 Acre Wood, we're talking a lot about what would our life have been like if we didn't have the forest close by in our village? I think a lot of people move to Wakefield because they like to be close to nature, and I know that's the reason I did. And so having nature around is beneficial in terms of recreation, in terms of the environment, and just in terms of our way of life and sort of the way our village is. So I think that preserving the forest just makes sense on a lot of levels.
All right, well, thank you both very much. I appreciate it, and all the best with the project.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian. I really appreciate the work you're doing.
My pleasure.